Hey there friends, Martin here, and yep, I took my sweet time exploring this Geonode Hair topic. They've been around from version 3.5, but I got into it only now when I'm starting to research new tools for my future short films. And yes, I'm pretty excited about what I've learned and what options this new hair system gives me for my projects. As far as I know, the possibility to animate or simulate these hair is still to be officially added. But otherwise, for static renders, this is already an amazing alternative to particle hair. And since the Blender devs want to focus solely on geometry nodes from now on, it makes sense to learn it sooner rather than later. In this video, let me quickly show you how easy it is to get into this topic. Step by step, I'll explain how I went about making the beard for this Thracian character from my Heroes of Bronze project without ever dipping into the geometry node networks. Sounds good? Let's get to it then. And remember, you can always visit my Patreon where I offer the blend file with the final hair and also a longer video with me working more extensively on these, creating more types of hair and fur. There will be more short films, so any support for Heroes of Bronze is always much appreciated. This is the character model I've been working on for this image. It's not really animated, and neither is the clothing here, as you can see. I only have this pose, which I've created and exported from iClone. And then I keyframed it at frame 40 and added a T-pose at the beginning. Neither the clothing nor the weapons are now important. So I have them on separate collections, and let me now deactivate them. What is left is this beard and these pathetic little hair at the forehead, which were originally poking from underneath the cap. So let's create some of these, shall we? More specifically, the beard. By the way, back in the day, I've actually made quite an extensive tutorial series on how I make particle hair in Blender. Still pretty much followable in Blender 4.0, I'd say. So if you remember, there we also started with this next step. By selecting a few faces on this human model here, let's say this mustache area, make it a little larger than just the area where the mustache will be. It will make it more convenient when we're going to be weight painting later. Now Shift D to duplicate it and hit P to separate it from the main mesh. You can now name it, let's say, mustache base, and important, make sure the scale is applied. For these geometry node hair, you always want to have 1, 1, and 1 here on whatever geometry you'll be adding them to. Also, make sure your normals are facing out and that you have UVs generated on this geometry, because the placement of the future geometry node hair very much depends on the UVs. This little piece of geometry we created so that our main mesh doesn't become too difficult to work with. And also, if we screw up something while making the hair, which of course we won't, but if we do, it doesn't actually mess up our character, just this little piece. Now the easiest way to add the new hair is by selecting this geometry piece, hitting Shift A and adding this curve fur object. See, we already have something here, a very soft stubble. And now with this curves object selected, if you jump into the sculpt mode, you can see a whole new set of tools, which are, however, very familiar to anyone who ever used particle hair grooming tools. So you can grow your hair, shorten them, comb them, use a snake hook, etc. In our case though, we'll make the mustache from scratch so that I can explain this thing a little better. Let's delete these curves and instead add an empty hair here. This creates a base for the geometry node system, but it adds no actual hair. That's up to us now. So if we jump into the sculpt mode and use this add tool, we can then manually place these so-called guiding curves. You can leave the count here to 1 to have better control over each one added, and then just have a look at the length. Currently it is too long, of course, so Ctrl Z to get rid of these curves, or you can jump into the edit mode, select them here, Ctrl L to expand the selection to the whole curve, and then delete. To make the default length of the curves shorter, just jump into this little menu and bring it down to something like 1. And to have enough curve points to work with, you can add 24 here, and now add a curve, and see, it's now shorter. And if we have a look in the edit mode, there is indeed 24 curve points to play with. These curve points are especially important for longer hair, but I like to add sufficient number even in case of this mustache. Let's go around the mesh and add the guide curves here and there. It's not necessary to make this coverage super dense, just a few widespread curves, because later we will interpolate some children here in between these. Something like this will probably be okay. This is where the awesome part comes in. You can just open up this asset browser, and built into the newer versions of Blender, there is this essentials pack of hair tools divided into different categories. First, we are interested in generating children for these curves to fill up the mustache. So go to the Generation subfolder, and here drag this Interpolate Hair onto the curves we've created. Okay, now all of them disappeared. To fix it though, you need to go and select the proper surface here in this new modifier that was added, which in our case is the mustache base. Good, we are back, and this added some children curves, and we can even increase the density of them here. Okay, now you can very quickly go and start playing with the guiding curves in the sculpt mode. Comb them, grow or shrink them, and maybe create these longer sides with the snake hook tool. If you want to avoid grooming them under the surface of the mesh, just click this option here. As mentioned, you can even go to edit mode, select just few of the curves, and then in sculpt mode, play just with the selection, while the other half will not be active. I use this all the time, so definitely give it a go. Mind you, this modifier in its core is basically this convoluted geometry node structure, and we are now controlling only a few inputs through these functions here. Fortunately for people like me, who are not really that technical, you never even need to enter this menu to create the hair. So, bye bye menu. I don't really want to go into every single option in this modifier here. Blender actually has a great post and tutorial series about all that. So definitely go to the description of this video to get all the links to it. In this tutorial, I just want to show you how easy it is to achieve nice looking results with this system. And currently, what kinda bugs me is the fact that the mustache here reaches the edges of our mesh piece and it is cut off sharply. We could go in and play with the length of these hair in the sculpt mode, but actually even faster, we can paint a weight map to drive this. So to do that, go to the mustache base, you can even hide the hair curves now, and then create a new vertex group here, name it Beard, and remember the name, that's important for later, and start painting in the weight paint mode. Just paint an area like this, where the colors get more and more green and blue at the edges of the geometry. And once you're done, unhide the mustache, go down here, and in the density mask menu, you click and then type in beard. See? It works. Just like controlling the density of your particle hair through weight maps. One option I'd like to also highlight is the distance to guides. Here you can see that a few of the children hair were created very far from the guiding curve up here. What I want is for the children to not appear that far away. And we can actually control it with this distance. If there's 0, you don't limit the distance. But if I start playing with it, I can very accurately control the fall off of the children. Good, like this. So at this point, you can hide the mustache base and even deactivate it from rendering so it doesn't pop up later. At any time, of course, play with the hair in the sculpt mode, just like I do here. And let's also increase the density to something like 300 or 400. If it slows down your viewport, just lower the viewport number here. In fact, let's have a look at how the hair appear in rendered mode. First off, create a simple principled hair BSDF for the mustache. Give it, for example, direct coloring and roughness of about 0.6, both here and here. Okay, not great, not terrible, but let's play with the shape of the hair curves. Here in the right folder, you can drag in the set hair curve profile, and you can see immediately that this improves a lot. The tips of the hair are now very narrow, thanks to the shape of 0.5 here, which makes the curves thick at the root but thin at the end. And you can play with the radius here as well. Let's in fact maybe lower it. Now the real fun for me lies in this deformation folder. Here you can play with the randomization and just drag and drop it onto the hair. First, I like this noise, so let's use it. Give it a bit of distance. and play with the shape, and then the scale of the noise as well. There, already this looks so much nicer. If you want to preserve the length of the curves that we set in the grooming, you can just check this option here. Next up, Frizz. It's kinda similar to noise, but a bit more random, making the curves a little curly. Again, I leave this up to you to play with, as well as experimenting with the other deformation presets here. They're all visually very well described and super easy to get into. And that's essentially it. Then all you need to do is to repeat the same workflow with the beard. So detach a section of geometry where you want the beard to be, create a weight map on it, and then add an empty hair curves object. Make sure the scale is applied and the normals are facing out, and also that this piece has its UVs. Start placing your guide curves, shaping them how you want them, then slap on it the various hair tools from the asset browser. So interpolate children, set hair profile, and finally the noise and frizz. Voila, you've got yourself a beard. If you want to know more, as mentioned, I've done a longer video for my Patreon. The link is in the description, and there you will also be able to download the final result. On Blender Cloud, there's also a file that the developers provided. You can download it, and it contains different hair types available for you to dice up and learn from. I totally recommend that you do, and it also contains this very nice material for EV hair, so use it. With that, the question is this better than particle hair systems? It feels faster to work with, and my impression is like I'm more in control of the shape of the hair. So that's definitely something. If you're using just these tools, the functionality is pretty much the same as particle hair. However, do remember, you can always invest some time in dicing up the geometry node structures that run underneath all this. And then your options are vast. I can imagine that a skilled creator can build in some more functionality into this, spread more stuff on the hair itself, make various parts of it drive other parts, etc. Not to mention when the plant simulation tools for these hair are added. Then it will be absolutely the way to go. So far, for me, just the fact that I already feel more comfortable controlling these curves than I ever did when grooming the particle hair, I think that speaks volumes. Let me know what you think, and if you want me to expand on this topic in the future. And most importantly, stay creative, my friends. And until next time, Martin out.